The National Film Board of Canada presents Perspective, a Canadian view of Canada, its people, and the world in which they live. This week, Perspective presents Fighter Wing by William Weintraub.
This is Fred Davis speaking to you from Germany. Right now we're located near a place called Zweibrucken. And at the risk of sounding like a quiz program, have you any idea what that might be? Some time ago they wrote a song about it, and the lyrics said that the people were vowing to hang their washing on it. That's right, it's part of the Siegfried line. These are the ruins of a great fortress, one of many that made up the famous West Wall. Hitler built it to protect the 1,000-year Reich. The Allies blew it up. It simply didn't work. Under the ground here, there was once a network of tunnels, barracks, and arsenals. But it couldn't stop the Allies' onslaught. The Siegfried line belonged to an old-fashioned concept of defense. It was the last of the great useless stone walls. Today, defense depends on a different kind of wall, a wall that can move with the speed of sound. Sabre jets of the Royal Canadian Air Force. They're stationed here in West Germany as part of Canada's contribution to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. There are 4 Canadian bases like this in Germany and France. This one is known as No. 3 Fighter Wing. It's here to stop an enemy if he ever comes this way. In a few minutes, you'll see how that would be done. These are some of the best daytime fighter planes in squadron service. They're built in Montreal. The engines come from Toronto. And there are skilled technicians here from every part of Canada to see that they're always ready to take to the air. And pilots ready, too. Hidden behind their relaxation is a constant alertness. I was surprised by the youth of these pilots. Their average age is under 24, but they fly airplanes worth $250,000 each. Zoli Tothpal of Niagara Falls is only 22, but he's one of the best pilots in his squadron. Jack Pennycook of Toronto, 23. Bob Freeborn of Winnipeg, 23. Lloyd Hubbard of Calgary and Jerry McCulley of Rothsay, New Brunswick are the old men of the outfit. Lloyd is 33 and Jerry is 35. Ken Williams of Kamloops, British Columbia is 25, and Pete Conroy, North Battleford, Saskatchewan, is 27. Off duty as well as on, Pete Conroy finds being in Europe a stimulating experience. He's a sports car enthusiast, and this is the place for it. On Germany's famous Autobahn, straight, wide express highways, driving is a real pleasure. And there's so much to see in this part of the world, so much to do. And for an amateur photographer like Pete, there's never any lack of subject matter. With his sports car and camera, Pete has visited half a dozen countries since he came to Europe. He's been to England, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Denmark, and Holland. And he'll visit several other countries before his tour of duty is over and he goes back to Canada again. The trouble is, there are so many interesting things to see in Europe that it's hard to choose where to go. Even for one-day excursions, not far from the air station, there's a variety of fascinating places to visit. There's the old German city of Heidelberg, for instance, where visitors come from all over the world. Back at Zweibrucken, one of Pete Conroy's favorite photographic subjects is the family of Flight Lieutenant Jameson. Jamie and Pete spend a lot of time together, both on the ground and in the air, where Jamie is section leader and Pete is his number 2 man. Jamie is 37 and comes from Toronto. He's been a pilot for 14 years now. About a year ago, he and his family were posted to Germany.
Fred, we use these aircraft models for practice recognition purposes. By seeing them every day of the week from all angles, we get the silhouettes firmly in our mind and can pretty well recognize anything we're liable to see when we're airborne.
Some of these look almost identical to me.
That's true, and that's our big problem. I have taken 2 down here just to demonstrate. Here are a pair. Can you point out any differences you see there?
Well, this one's a little larger, isn't it?
That's right, but if you saw it by itself in the air, you'd have nothing to compare it with. Points we look at, or look for, are the fact that this one, if you look at it, has a low wing mounting, whereas this one is mid-wing. The nose configuration is quite different, and the tail difference is quite noticeable.
Well, how would you attack an aircraft of this kind?
Well, Fred, it's a case of teamwork, and one of the tactics we'd use is the old standby of coming in out of the sun.
Oh, to blind the gunner's eyes, eh?
That's the idea.
I suppose you've got some new tactics, too.
Yes, but we won't talk about that.
Well, now, this business of the fighter planes, I understand you always work in groups of 2. Is that correct?
That's right. Our formations are made up of elements of 2. Pete has a couple of models here. Would you show?
Okay. Well, Fred, in normal battle, we fly almost abreast of one another with perhaps I'd be slightly back. And in this position, we cover each other extremely well. All the sky is covered. Now, however, if we see a bomber such as we just discussed, and we are to investigate or make an attack on it, I'll drop back into a position almost line astern to Jamie, and by moving back and forth through his line of flight, and by checking over my shoulder, right from 6 to 6 both ways at all times, I can cover the entire sky to the rear, while Jamie is responsible for all the sky in front of us, as well as the target aircraft.
Now, what would you do if an enemy fighter came in to attack you? Would you break off and go after him?
Oh, no. If an enemy were to attack us, I call his position.
To Jamie?
To Jamie, yes. And we carry on with the attack until such time as that enemy aircraft is in a position where he could open fire or be at least quite a hazard to us. And at that point, then, we would break into the enemy aircraft. In other words, a violent turn towards the aircraft which is attacking us. But even at that time, I stay with Jamie, even in the break.
Okay, green section, you're now on 10.
That's us, Pete. I got to change.
Roger, Jamie. Oh, see you later, eh, Fred?
Okay, Pete.
All right, green section, you're on 10. That meant Pete and Jamie's section were being put on 10 minutes readiness. They had to be ready to go up in 10 minutes if necessary. And so they had to change into their flying suits and get out to the planes. It was the beginning of an exercise that would show what would happen if enemy planes were to attack this area. I was going to watch this exercise and have it explained to me by Flying Officer Dave Fry.
Dave? Yes. Dave Fry? Oh, hello, Fred. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
I think for a start, we should watch this. It's a fast turnaround.
Fast turnaround? What's involved in that?
Well, these 2 aircraft have just landed. Now they're being checked over by the ground crew. They're getting more fuel and ammunition. They should be ready to go up again within a few minutes. You see, this is part of the exercise too, Fred. It's being done against the clock.
Speed is pretty important then, is it?
Oh, right. In this business, everything depends on speed. Under actual battle conditions, of course, we have to be able to get our aircraft back up into the air again as soon as possible after they've landed for fuel and ammunition.
That would give you more striking power, wouldn't it?
Yes, it does, Fred. It also means, however, that we're less likely to be caught on the ground by attackers.
Oh, here, Pete and Jamie. Well, that didn't take long.
Hi, fellas. Howdy.
Are these the G-suits I've heard about?
That's right, Fred. They're actually called anti-G-suits.
Anti-G, what does that mean?
Well, Fred, G, the letter G stands for gravity.
Oh.
And like every person has a weight, and it's actually caused by the gravity force of the Earth.
Yes.
Now, if we fly, it doesn't matter how fast we go, it doesn't mean a thing. G doesn't bother us, there is none.
Yes.
Other than the 1G we weigh.
Yes.
But if we go into a turn or pull up, then G, through centrifugal force, starts to take place.
Well, now, how do these suits correct the condition?
Well, they're initially form-fitting, Fred, as you can see. And they have bladders also in the stomach and in the legs that are inflated with air automatically through this hose we connect in the aircraft.
Yes.
And as we go into a turn, the air pressure increases through this hose, inflating the bladders so that the body is compressed, actually, by these bladders. And it tends to prevent the blood from flowing from the upper part of our body and causing blackout. It no longer can pool in our stomach and legs. See?
I think we got to get cracking that,
Right.
Pete.
Oh, we'll see you later then.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So long.
Do they take off now?
Oh, no, Fred. They're just going to taxi to the end of the runway. Then the pilots climb out and they just sit around and wait for the word to go. We can follow the whole show from the operations room here.
Okay. The operations room is the brains and nerve center of a vast aerial chess game. The plotting board shows the map of Europe and the positions of all aircraft flying over the area. The information on the board comes from radar, which reaches up into the sky to show you where your own planes are and to spot an approaching enemy. Electronic eyes and ears funnel information into this room and then send battle orders to the fighters high above. Modern warfare has become incredibly complex, scientific, mechanical. But success still depends largely on human ingenuity, good strategy, quick decisions. And that's what this room is for.
Now, this here is the status board, Fred, which is quite interesting. It shows the disposition of our aircraft at all times, those which are in the air and those which are on one of the various states of operational readiness.
Are Jamie and Pete shown on here?
Well, yes. Here they are. Rhubarb green. And the information now being displayed shows that they're coming through onto 5-minute readiness, which means they can be airborne within 5 minutes from now.
Wow.
You notice behind the board the airwomen and airmen. They're showing here information concerning the states of aircraft as they are changed, and also information concerning takeoff and landing of our planes.
I see.
But to get the overall picture, Fred, let's go over to the plotting board here.
Okay.
I'm going to step off on here. Excuse your earliness. Here's where we are, Fred. It's Zweibrucken. And over here, this solid line indicates the border of East Germany from where the enemy, so-called enemy, will come.
Yes.
Now, you'll see him indicated on the board by an arrow pointed in the direction he's flying. An arrow such as one of these. He'll be coming from here. Our fighters will be coming out of Zweibrucken to meet him and shoot him down before he reaches his target.
Now, where will the target be?
Well, his target could be anywhere in the industrial area of eastern France or western Germany. But for this instance, we've chosen Luxembourg.
And how far is it from Luxembourg to the East German border?
Ooh, roughly 200 miles. Now, that seems like quite a lot, but he'll be traveling at 600 miles an hour. To cover 200 miles would take him 1/3 of an hour, 20 minutes. we've got 20 minutes in which to stop him.
Gee, at that rate, an atomic war wouldn't take too long to finish, would it?
Certainly wouldn't, no. That's why we're constantly trying to knock seconds off our performance time here.
Now, just exactly what do you have to do in that 20 minutes that you mentioned?
Well, if you watch closely in here, Fred, and keep an eye on the clock, you'll see. He's going to cross the border here at 20 to 10. He's got to be shot down by 10 o'clock. Now, at the moment, the pilots are sitting in the tent at the end of the runway, just killing time. They don't know when they've got to go. They're just waiting for the word. 20 seconds to go.
Move green section over to standby.
Roger.
Green section.
Move rhubarb green to standby.
Roger, we're on 2. Let's go.
What's going on now, Dave?
Well, on the status board, rhubarb green has just been shown on a state of 2-minute standby. That means from the signal to go, he has 2 minutes in which to get into the air.
And when will that signal go through?
Well, very soon now. The track on the board here is being picked up by a forward radar and told into us. We're identifying at the moment, and as soon as we're positive that that is our so-called enemy track, the boys will get the signal to go up after it.
Roger. Track 78 has been identified as simulated enemy. Scramble rhubarb green.
Roger.
Scramble rhubarb green. Vector 070. Make Angels 40. Contact topside 14 on F Fox.
Hello, Control. This is Rhubarb Green. Vector 070, make Angels 40, contact topside 14 on F Fox.
Green, roger out.
Topside 14, receiving loud and clear, over.
Rhubarb Green, Parrot squawking normal, over.
Rhubarb Green, this is topside, Parrot squawk normal, over.
Topside 14 is Rhubarb Green, off Zweibrucken, 2 chickens, climbing 070 to Angels 40, over.
Rhubarb Green, roger, we have you in radar contact, over.
Now they're climbing to a fighting altitude, Fred, more than 8 miles up. And there isn't a lot of time left now before the enemy reaches his target.
What was all that radio jargon we just heard?
All code words, Fred. They're chosen because they don't get distorted too easily on the radio. Topside 14 is the call sign of our controller. Rhubarb Green is the call sign of James section. Angels, well, one angel is 1,000 feet.
Would the fighter controller be located in here?
Right, yes. He's at scope number 2 up here.
Rhubarb Green, topside 14, vector port 360, over.
Topside 14, this is Rhubarb Green, port 360. Over.
Rhubarb green, roger. Wind steady, 360. Your bogey is 2 o'clock, 70, over.
What's a bogey, Dave?
Oh, bogey is the word used for a target aircraft. Here, the controller's turned his section onto a new heading and told them that when they've taken up that heading, his target will be at 2 o'clock for a distance of 70 miles.
So this entire strategy can be planned right here on the radar scope.
Oh, right, yes.
Yes, you see, here's our enemy aircraft, or bogey here. Here's our fighter section. The problem now is that of final positioning. We must get our fighters in the best possible position for an attack on our bogey.
Topside 14 is rhubarb green, steady at 360, Angels 40, over.
Rhubarb green, roger. Your target is now 1 o'clock, 50 miles. Tracking 240, 5,000 feet low, over.
Rhubarb green, topside 14, vector port 330, over.
Rhubarb green, when steady, bogey will be 1 o'clock, 15 miles. Crossing starboard to port, 5,000 low, over.
Topside 14, green turning port 330, over.
Rhubarb green, topside 14, continue port 280. When steady, your bogey will be 1230, 5 miles, over.
Topside 14, green, continuing port 280, over. Topside 14, green, steady on 280, over. Tally ho, 1230, 3, 1 bogey, over.
Rhubarb green, roger. Check your tally ho at 1230, 3. Investigate bogey, over.
Topside, this is Rhubarb green, bogey identified as bandit, over.
Rhubarb green, bag bandit, over. Topside, rhubarb green, splash 1 bandit, over.
Well, that's it, Fred. They made it.
And they shot the bogey down, did they?
Well, in theory, yes. Splash 1 bandit means 1 enemy aircraft has been destroyed.
Green lead, green 2 damaged, over.
Green 2, green lead checks.
Topside 14, this is green lead. Request to steer for base, over.
Rhubarb green, topside 14, roger. Steer 220 for base. When steady, base is 12 o'clock, 50 miles. Your base weather requires GCA. We'll do a handoff from GCI to GCA. Your tower has been advised your number 2 man is damaged. Over.
You see, in theory, Pete's aircraft has been damaged by enemy action.
And what happens now?
Well, he's just asked for his instructions for reaching home. The controller has given them to him. And to make things a bit more interesting, they're going to do a ground-controlled landing.
Oh, you mean bad weather?
Well, we're pretending for the sake of the exercise that base weather is closed in. They'll make a blind landing, and both will be guided all the way down by radar.
Could we see them actually coming in?
Well, if you like, yeah. Should we go out the field and see?
Fine.
We can watch the whole show from up there, Fred.
Oh, fine.
GCA, green descending to Angels 3, maintaining present heading, over.
How are they doing?
They're about 17 miles away. GCA is bringing them in.
Oh, that's the thing, Fred. I didn't show you GCA on the way up. It's over here.
Is that it with the revolving antenna on top?
That's right. Seated in the large trailer there is an operator in the dark with his scope watching Jamie's section on the approach. Once they've established contact with each other, there's a constant conversation as the operator talks Jamie down onto the runway.
Green lead GCA. You're now at 11 miles, and speedbacks officially perform landing cockpit check and advise.
Roger, will advise. Roger, GCA. Cockpit check complete.
Green lead GCA. You are approaching the glide path. Suggest final flap selection. this is your final controller. How do you read me?
Roger, GCA. Read you 5 square.
Over.
They're coming into the stretch now, Fred. From this point on, the pilot doesn't acknowledge any more of his instructions. He just keeps listening to the operator and adjusting his controls accordingly.
I see. How long will it be before he lands?
Oh, not much more than a minute now. We should see them soon.
Green lead, this is your final controller. You're now on final approach for runway 4. Do not acknowledge further instructions. Maintaining 2,000, approaching 3 miles from touchdown. On the glide path now, commence descent. 700 feet per minute standard rate. 030 is your heading on course. Azimuth is good. 2.5 miles from touchdown. Holding your glide path nicely, rate of descent is good. On course, 030 is the heading, turn right 2 degrees, 032. Slight left drift, 1 3/4 miles from touchdown. Back on course, heading 032. Approach heading 032 is good. You're on course, approaching the runway nicely. Your glide path is good. 1 mile from touchdown. On course, on glide path as you pass through GCA controllers, the limits 1/2 mile from touchdown. 032 is your heading, turn left 030. Over the airport boundary, 1,000 feet from the approach end of the runway, 030 the heading. Approaching the end of the runway, on course, on glide path. You're over the end of the runway now. Approaching touchdown, over touchdown now. Take over visually and land your airplane. GCA is standing by.
There we are, Fred. A perfect landing.
It certainly was. Well, Dave, I'm afraid it's time to go. Thank you very much for all your help. In fact, everybody here at number 3 Fighter Wing have made it a most interesting visit.
Glad you enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Now, this is Fred Davis saying goodbye from Zweibrucken, Germany, where we've seen the jet fighters of Canada's NATO Air Division participating in the defense of Western Europe.
This week's Perspective was directed by Don Haldane. Written by William Weintraub. Reported by Fred Davis. Photography, Eugene Boyko. Sound recording, Jack Locke. Editor, Tony Lower. Production assistant, Blanche Markle. Location manager, Lee Gordon. Sound editor, Brian Keene. Special sound, Joan Edward. Perspective is a National Film Board of Canada production, produced by Julian Biggs. Next week on Perspective, The Cage by Gordon Burwash.